The autumn rain hammered against the glass doors of the Riverside Corporate Tower in downtown Seattle, where Jennifer Walsh stood impatiently in the marble lobby, scrolling through her phone. As vice president of marketing at Nexus Innovations, she'd grown accustomed to a certain standard: polished shoes, tailored suits, and people who knew their place in the hierarchy. A man shuffled through the revolving door, water streaming from his torn jacket. His graying beard was unkempt, his boots held together with duct tape, and he carried a weathered backpack that looked like it had survived a decade on the streets. He moved toward the lobby seating area, leaving wet footprints on the pristine floor. Jennifer's lip curled. She marched over to the security desk where Marcus, the evening guard, was reviewing his clipboard. "Excuse me," she said sharply, not bothering to lower her voice. "Is there a reason we're allowing homeless people to loiter in our building? This is a professional environment, not a shelter." Marcus looked up, surprised. I'm not sure what that man," Jennifer interrupted, pointing at the stranger, who was now sitting quietly on a bench, examining what appeared to be architectural sketches spread across his lap. "He's clearly homeless. He's dripping all over our floor, and frankly, I don't feel safe. I have clients coming through here. What kind of impression does this send?" The man looked up briefly, his dark eyes meeting hers. There was no anger there, only a deep weariness, as if he'd heard variations of this speech 1,000 times before. He said nothing, simply returned his attention to his papers. "I'll handle it," Marcus said uncomfortably, moving from behind the desk. "See that you do," Jennifer replied, already turning away. "I'm heading up to the executive lounge. I expect this situation resolved when I return." She didn't see Marcus approach the man with a whispered conversation, didn't see him nod respectfully before the stranger gathered his things. She was already in the elevator, texting her assistant about tomorrow's presentation, having completely forgotten the encounter by the time she reached the 40th floor. 3 days later, Jennifer stood in the main conference room, laser pointer in hand, walking the board of directors through her proposal for the company's new headquarters expansion. Months of work had gone into this presentation: market research, cost analyses, partnership proposals with the city's most prestigious architectural firms. "As you can see," she said, clicking to the next slide, "partnering with Sterling and Associates will position Nexus as a leader in sustainable corporate design. Their glass and steel aesthetic perfectly embodies our brand values of transparency and innovation." Thomas Brennan, the CEO, leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "The numbers are solid, Jennifer, but something feels derivative. Sterling does excellent work, but their buildings all look the same. We need something that makes a statement, something that shows we're not just following trends, we're setting them." Jennifer's confidence wavered slightly. "With respect, sir, Sterling is the gold standard in Seattle. They designed the Emerald Tower and the Pacific Financial Center. Their reputation alone would make us look like everyone else," interrupted Sarah Chen, the CFO. "I'm with Thomas on this. We're spending $200 million on this expansion. I want visionary, not safe." The meeting adjourned with Jennifer's proposal tabled pending further exploration of alternatives. As she gathered her materials, frustration burning in her chest, she overheard Thomas speaking with his executive assistant in the hallway. "Get me everything you can find on unconventional architects. People doing interesting work outside the mainstream. I want names on my desk by tomorrow morning." Jennifer returned to her office and slammed her laptop shut. Unconventional. The board was making a mistake. Sterling was the obvious choice. She'd invested too much time in this proposal to have it derailed by some whim about making a statement. Jennifer's assistant, Kevin, knocked on her door the next morning, holding a coffee and looking nervous. "Did you see the email?" he asked. "What email?" "From Thomas. About the new architect they're bringing in for consultation. Apparently someone on the board knew him from years ago and reached out personally." Jennifer pulled up her inbox, scanning quickly. Her eyes widened as she read, "I'm pleased to announce that we've secured a consultation with Daniel Cross. Some of you may recognize his work from the Harmony Pavilion in Vancouver or the Floating Gardens in Portland. Mr. Cross brings a unique perspective to sustainable architecture and has agreed to present an alternative vision for our headquarters expansion. Meeting scheduled for Thursday, 2 p.m., main conference room." She clicked the attached portfolio link, and her breath caught. The buildings in the photographs were unlike anything she'd seen, structures that seemed to grow from the earth rather than dominate it, incorporating living walls, natural light patterns, and water features that served both aesthetic and ecological purposes. The Harmony Pavilion looked like a waterfall had been convinced to become architecture. The floating gardens appeared to defy physics, with offices suspended over reflecting pools that served as rainwater collection systems. But what made Jennifer's stomach drop was the photograph at the bottom of the portfolio. It was him, the homeless man from the lobby. Cleaned up, wearing a simple black shirt, but unmistakably the same person. The same dark eyes, the same weathered face, except in this photo, he was standing before a massive architectural model, surrounded by awards and accolades. Jennifer felt the blood drain from her face. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Thursday arrived with the weight of impending doom. Jennifer had barely slept, her mind replaying the lobby encounter in painful detail. She'd considered calling in sick, considered requesting a schedule conflict, but she was VP of Marketing. Her absence at a major presentation would be noted and questioned. She arrived at the conference room 15 minutes early, taking a seat in the back corner. Hoping to make herself invisible, Daniel Cross arrived precisely at 2 p.m., accompanied by Thomas Brennan. He looked different in charcoal slacks and a crisp button-down shirt, his beard trimmed, his grey hair pulled back neatly. But his eyes, those same tired, knowing eyes, found Jennifer immediately as he entered the room. She wanted to disappear. Thank you all for making time, Daniel began, his voice quiet but commanding. Before I begin the presentation, I'd like to share why I almost declined this opportunity. The room went silent. Last Tuesday evening, I came to this building to deliver preliminary sketches to an associate. I'd been working in my studio all day, a renovated warehouse with a leaking roof, which explains my appearance. He smiled slightly, without humor. I was asked to leave. Not politely asked, but demanded, by someone who saw a man in torn clothes and decided they knew everything about who I was and what I deserved. Jennifer felt every eye in the room searching for the guilty party. She stared at her hands, her face burning. I share this not to embarrass anyone, Daniel continued, but because it's relevant to what I want to propose today. Architecture isn't just about designing beautiful spaces for beautiful people. It's about creating environments that serve everyone, the executive in a $1,000 suit and the janitor working the night shift. The businesswoman closing deals and the homeless veteran seeking shelter from the rain. He clicked to his first slide, showing a breathtaking design that seemed to merge nature with functionality. What I'm proposing for Nexus isn't just a headquarters. It's a statement about corporate responsibility. The ground floor would include a public space, a community center, accessible to anyone, providing resources, warmth, and dignity to those who need it most. The upper floors would house your offices, designed with biophilic principles that improve mental health and productivity. The entire structure would be carbon neutral within 5 years. For the next hour, Daniel walked them through a vision that was both practical and revolutionary. Every question was answered with expertise born from decades of experience. Every concern was met with solutions that revealed how deeply he'd studied not just architecture, but human behavior, environmental science, and urban planning. When he finished, the room erupted in animated discussion. Thomas was leaning forward, energized. Sarah was already calculating figures, nodding approvingly. Even the skeptical board members were won over. Daniel began packing his materials, and Jennifer knew she had to act. She stood on shaking legs and approached him as the room cleared. Mr. Cross, she said quietly. I need to apologize. He looked at her, and she saw no anger, only that same weariness. I was the one who had you removed from the lobby, she continued, her voice cracking. I saw your clothes and your bag, and I made assumptions. I judged you based on appearance, and I was cruel. I'm so deeply sorry. Daniel was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I accept your apology, Ms. Walsh. But I want you to understand something. That wasn't the first time someone treated me that way, and it won't be the last. I've been designing buildings for 30 years, won international awards, but when I'm checking on a construction site covered in dust, or working late in my studio wearing old clothes, people still see what they expect to see. I should have known better, Jennifer said, tears threatening. Yes, Daniel agreed simply. You should have. But the fact that you're standing here, genuinely apologizing, tells me you're capable of learning. That's more than most people demonstrate. He handed her a card. If this project moves forward, I'll need liaisons across departments. You know marketing, you know this company. If you're interested in being part of something meaningful, call my office. The board approved Daniel's design unanimously. Jennifer spent the next 6 months working directly with him on the project, and it changed everything she thought she knew about success and value. She learned that Daniel had spent 5 years homeless in his 20s after his first architectural firm collapsed in a recession. That experience had shaped every building he designed afterward, spaces that acknowledged the full spectrum of human experience, not just the polished, profitable parts. She learned that the weathered backpack he'd been carrying that rainy evening contained sketches worth millions. Initial designs for a sustainable housing project in Vancouver that would eventually win international acclaim. She learned that Marcus, the security guard she'd spoken to so dismissively, was a former Marine who'd served with Daniel's son. That's why he'd treated Daniel with quiet respect, even as Jennifer was demanding his removal. Most importantly, she learned to see people differently. On the day the new Nexus headquarters broke ground, Jennifer stood beside Daniel at the ceremony, watching Thomas give the dedication speech. The design incorporated the community center Daniel had envisioned, a warm, open space on the ground floor where anyone could enter, regardless of their circumstances. I still can't believe I almost ruined this, Jennifer said quietly. Daniel smiled, watching workers prepare the site. You didn't ruin it. You learned from it. That's what matters. I've been thinking, Jennifer continued, about that community center. I'd like to volunteer there once it opens. Maybe help with employment programs, resume workshops, that kind of thing. Daniel looked at her with something approaching warmth. I think that would be excellent, Ms. Walsh. Jennifer, she corrected. Please, call me Jennifer. The Nexus headquarters became Seattle's most photographed building, featured in architectural magazines worldwide. But Jennifer's favorite part was watching the community center transform lives, job placements, GED completions, families finding housing assistance. She'd also quietly implemented new protocols in the company's lobbies. No one would be asked to leave based on appearance alone. Security staff received training on dignity and respect. And Jennifer herself spent one evening per week at the community center, teaching professional development classes. One rainy evening, similar to the one 3 years earlier, Jennifer was leaving the building when she saw a young man in torn clothes hesitating near the entrance, looking cold and uncertain. She walked over with a warm smile. Can I help you? She asked gently. The community center's entrance is just around the corner, but if you'd like to dry off and warm up, there's a coffee station in the lobby. You're welcome to use it. The young man's eyes widened with surprise, then gratitude. Really? I thank you. That's really kind. As Jennifer held the door open for him, she thought of Daniel, and of the person she used to be. She thought of how easy it is to judge, how hard it is to truly see people, and how a single moment of compassion, or cruelty, can ripple outward in ways we never anticipate. She'd learned the hardest way possible that genius doesn't announce itself, that worth isn't measured in appearances, and that the person you dismiss today might be the one who changes your tomorrow. But more than that, she'd learned that the real measure of a person isn't avoiding mistakes, it's what you choose to do after you make them.